Hi, everyone. Well, welcome to this live transmission where I will be doing some readings as I did the other time with Rob for Typical Skeptic. And now, well, I'm just putting here the cards. But before going there, of course, anyone who is interested in receiving a reading, just feel free to comment on the video, whether if it's on YouTube, whether if it's on Facebook. I will be more than happy to, hi, David, to do a reading. And of course, if at some point you want to do any donation based on that reading, I will also write the PayPal address that you can actually use. I'm sorry, it cut out. I'm here. Okay, so let me see if there is a way that I can use that without yeah, I think it's them. Okay, let me see. Just no. Okay, well, there it is. There it is. I will hide it for now until we start. So anyway, I will keep track of the comments on Facebook because normally they don't show up in my chat. So I will just be looking both sources. So anyway, I have been sharing a lot about what the Netheru are, mainly known as these Egyptian gods and goddesses that a lot of people have resonance with them. There is something in the imprint of the human hologram that a lot of people is called to Egypt. We can relate that to Atlantis because actually the fall of Atlantis is like overall a big part of our memories, not to mention a wound, a trauma, the biggest trauma that is in the soul due to the last cataclysm and all these memories in a collective way. They have a manner to influence our patterns of behavior, our forms of perceiving reality until, of course, we transcend them. So for a reason, I opened up the topic with this because there is a lot of magic when it comes to Egyptian cosmology. As you know, I go there oftenly, and even have lived there for a few years at some point. And for like in relation to all the countries that I have been so far, I'm very grateful for that. I can tell you that what you get to experience in Egypt is unique. Um, a lot of people compare it to what you get to experience in Mexico. Perhaps that's one of the reasons that I chose to embody here in Mexico, but not really. Perhaps it's correlated, but anyway, um, the way that the magic unfolds in Egypt is unique. There is something in the air. There is something in the frequency, the electromagnetic field of every temple, of the guardians hidden as people, that you can see how even those Netheru, or gods and goddesses, and again, I must clarify, Netheru doesn't mean god or goddess, or gods or goddesses. Nether is actually the divine nature of something. So when we connect with these divine natures, with these cosmic beings, it's very important. And for instance, even the reading, this is not because they are something more powerful than you are. No, this is because actually the moment where you are at right now, you won't see something very clear, but that doesn't mean that that Neter for giving you a message has the power over you. This is super important. Like every time that we do any readings, or even receive consultations from someone else, or, like sessions or whatever, it doesn't mean that if you're connecting with a god or goddess, regarding whether if it's Egyptian or not, because it's more powerful than you. There are just different scales of and levels of consciousness. And the more that we acknowledge that we have the imprint of that range of divinity, then we open up to embody that level of divinity, not seeking for it outside, yet within. So this kind of readings are just to, like, when someone, a friend, or a therapist, or a healer or whatever, or even like someone in your family tells you something that you were not aware of, that you were not capable to see through. It's the same with the nether. Of course, the level of wisdom is different. It's nothing that you cannot attain to embody at all. So having said this, um, I just want to I just want to mention, of course, I will be picking up a card as a message for us, for the ones that will be watching or that are already watching this transmission before starting the readings. And I don't know, as I was saying in the beginning of the video, there is something that most people feel attracted to when it comes to Egypt. If you haven't been there, then perhaps you have read books about it or watched a lot of documentaries on Egypt, or like shows, people talking about it. And of course the cosmology, because the way, not only the technology that they have, that they at some point built, whether if it was dynastic, pre-dynastic, ET constructions, and as we know, but the way that they influence now our reality is so vast that even if you have not been to Egypt, that affects you in a positive way. So right now there are some of these Netheru that are fulfilling a very important role in human evolution, that actually carry codes, as I was saying. Hi, Tennessee, Kentucky Bigfoot. So if at some point as I was saying, there are some of this Netheru that actually hold codes as seeders, as founders of this humanity. And hence, they are here to bring messages, visions, um, coaching to humanity so that the process of remembrance is easier. So perhaps you're aware of it, perhaps you're not, but a lot of people, when they start to connect with this Netheru, uh, then they start receiving huge activations, just by connecting with them. And these activations are due to that you have codes from whether if it was in Atlantean times or even before, at a Hyperborea stage, um, or like we could go progressively through the main stages of human evolution, and that the influence that the codes that were imprinted through the grid that they planted at some point through the network, the pyramidal network, the temple network, and so forth. That being the place where Giza is located is actually the center when we unfold the earth. It's just at the center, and then there continues a huge ley line with a lot of main ancient sites. So the fact that they knew what they were doing when they built that, it's because they knew that which emitted at a high potency at some moment would continue doing it at this moment as it is. Because perhaps we see the pyramids and we can say, hey, but those are, like, they're barely active right now. Yeah, but you can put an apple and it won't decompose in a while. So can you imagine the power that they had at that moment? And we can access to that power through interdimensional travel, and we can access to the wisdom that we hold of perhaps the Isis codes, or the Hathorian codes, or Sekhmet, or Ptah, or Osiris, and so forth. And the more that you read into the story, you can be aware that that story that is told about those Netheru, somehow it fits perfectly in what is happening right now in humanity, patterns that keep on repeating themselves in human unconsciousness. Why? You might say cycles, it's just about the imprint generation after generation. And you can say, yes, but those were beings from the galactic community. Yeah, and they manipulated the DNA at some point. So their codes are imprinted within us. That's one thing. Now, the other thing is how this matrix was constructed. And this matrix was built through a mold, poured into a vessel, and then expanded through that huge neuronal network of the pyramids, of the temples, of the circle stones, of any ancient structure that was placed or that is placed in an anomaly, and which electric current continues, regardless if it's not fully active, it continues to expand those codes from that are coming from a ninth density, from a seventh density. And yes, after that, which requires at some point, depending on the structure, some clearing. Why? Because for instance, if we tune into the pyramids, they would create the 0 point energy, so that's an automatic cleanse, and that's why one of the things that they were looking for, to create these structures that would um, purify themselves through the vacuum, you know because they knew the amount of interference that would be coming through them. And by interference, I mean, imagine these huge oscillators that are also playing the role of antennas. So they're picking the transmission of many things. So they need to keep their field in coherence, in absolute coherence, so that the energy that they are picking up from the field is the one that is required to keep emitting the level of consciousness that was required at that moment, at that stage, to keep a unified consciousness within all the beings. I have shared this in other videos. For instance, when we're talking about levitation, I can tell you the quantum physics of that, or the quantum mechanics on that, which is just a variety of the vacuum, yet instead of sucking it, the two shapes or two forces sucking themselves into the center, they're actually repelling themselves through a very specific process that I have expressed in other videos, my last video actually. However, as I was saying, when we talk about levitation, and some people tuning into the fact that the pyramids were levitating, and that actually there were also cities that were etheric and levitating, one of them even perhaps Atlantis, and that the one that was located in Mauritania, in the eye of the Sahara, was, let's say, a very specific mirror reflecting into that technology. I'm not saying that it did not exist here. I'm just saying that within this field of creation, of holographic creation, this is also one of the reasons why the manufacture, to say it somehow, of the pyramids, the structure of the pyramids, is so perfect. Not only due to the advanced technology that they had, yet because they created it first from the holographic field consciously, like from a state of awareness. And for instance, it's not the same when you're doing a blueprint of something, that you're doing it precisely with the square, with the ruler, and then using the compass and so forth. That is easy. When it comes actually to a physical creation, then you will have to deal with other constants, like even like the weather. So this is why, in through my experiences in Egypt, I would hear a lot of people saying how the pyramids are holograms, and they would see them disappear at some point. Like, really, literally, I had that I was doing a show, alive, and then behind of me the pyramid, and at some point it was like, "Ooh, where is it?" Because it's fitting from the holographic network at a very precise level, even if it's not fully active at the moment. So imagine just projecting holographically. And this is why I also have shared images, why I say that we are in the fourth density, because, and even the Netheru, these ancient gods and goddesses of Egypt, I named them that way because it's more of like a lot of people relate to them in that way. So why this, like for instance, Osiris is shown sitting on the throne, which is a square, which is a tesseract, because it's showing the mastery, being the king of the 4D, of the fourth density. And it's not the king, it was just about the mastery over the fourth density, which is creating from the holographic reality by generating the awareness that we are on it, and therefore accessing multidimensionally to the space memory network and doing configurations from there, or what we could call the hyperspace. So this kind of wisdom, when I say in the beginning that there is nothing that, hi everyone, that there is, like we are equal to them, and after me saying all this tech that they counted on, and that they handled, you might say like, yeah, I don't know if I'm at the same level of consciousness. Perhaps not currently, but it doesn't mean that there is a version of yourself that meets them, and that the more that you see yourself through them, that version of yourself that has the same active codes will come and be integrated within you breathing it, embodying it, because that's the ultimate goal. To be that unified consciousness or that unity consciousness means, for me, to bring all the versions of myself, the ones that are mostly active. Otherwise it would be like this massive rave, I guess, in my not in my mind, thankfully, but like all this massive party that it would be like really hard to get into a harmonic place. However, when you filter the ones that through the level of activity that they have within you, that's something also very important to do. Because, for instance, when it comes to memories, what do you remember? Perhaps you don't remember, but you have that knowingness that you were there in Atlantis or in Lemuria or in Tartaria, or, and but you don't remember specifically. And why is that? Because even though through a gram of DNA we can access, or actually 4 grams of DNA we can access to the whole information of the planet and so forth, and of the universe, in a very small amount of DNA, we can also see that our brain is just tuning into very specific information and bringing it as memories. So when you ask yourself, where are my memories focused on? And you will see that there is this 20% that is actually connecting to this super powerful version of yourself. And perhaps the other 80%, of course, and it's not a rule, but it's, let's say the other 80% is connecting to what you do every day, but not even being in a state of presence, yet those memories that are imprisoned in who you were but in this lifetime, but who you are not today. So these unconscious memories are replaying over and over and over again at a very unconscious level, or perhaps conscious level. And then you are repeating, as a translation of this, you're repeating the same patterns. So, or even, like something daily basis, like daily life basis, learning a language. Do you have difficulties remembering, or learning a language, a foreign language? Why? The full potential in your brain is there. So what's happening? And then you will see the levels of interference that there are for you to actually use that percentage of neuronal activity to be able to remember that language, because that language is already within your genetic blueprint. All the information of the universe is in our DNA. And this is one of the biggest or key points of the unified consciousness. When we embody the unified consciousness, then we are capable to move from learning to remembering. And the difference in between those two is that learning is something that is apparently outside and you're bringing it in. Whereas remembering is something that is deep within you and you're just bringing it out. It's an outload. So, yeah. I'm reading the comments. Convergence, perhaps, for the heartfelt. And returns of self that are most relevant to the needs of the moment. I'm going to... Yeah, indeed. how reality is worked, it's actually quite simple. The more that we connect with how the universe functions, we will see that um, there is no hidden aspect about it. Everything is there, and the simpler, the closer, the closest to the truth that it is. Because, for instance, we talk about harmonics, we talk about frequency, we talk about, for instance, now when I pull a card for all of us who are watching the transmission, when we are talking in terms of the universe, this is becoming like really famous, which is frequent energy, frequency, and vibration. And everything unfolds into trinities, for instance, energy, frequency, and vibration, light, form, and sound, soul, spirit, and body, which would be the physical vessel. So all those trinities and even the 369 are algorithms, and they knew it when they configured actually the reality. They knew it. They just created a database and then fill it with energy, and that energy, that information filling in all the network, a shower of data that would be anchored through very specific algorithms for those algorithms to keep on replaying. This is why I was saying, if you are aware that the mythos about, for instance, the ancient cosmology are things that as a human collective are being repeated, as patterns. For instance, the sacrifice, the drama, the brothers that hate each other, the missing link, the virginal conception, um, then the battle in between dark and light. And if we ask ourselves if that's the way that the universe reads its experience, it's not. The universe is very simple. The universe finds a purpose on every energy, whether if it's a negative or a positive energy, whether if it's light or shadow. And I know that I'm not saying anything new, like more and more, we are not only aware of that, we are more capable to understand, to generate the understanding of these words and progressively embody them. The thing is that when it comes to know our origin, this is where it is very important to see through the codes. I have been posting a lot of, for a while, a lot of information on the genetics. And even, for instance, these genetics of, like, as I was saying, the virginal conception and the origin of the word Genesis, which is the gen Isis, the gen of Isis, and which was this being that facilitated the gene that would be used for breathing, or actually generating that fusion of genetics, that genetic manipulation. And then, ta-da, we have the first forms of humans. And will be disclosing a lot of information that I haven't, because some of it's very delicate. And yet some of it brings the answers of why the conflict in Middle East began. And I know that it is important to bring it to the light so that actually being aware of that will start creating ripples in time at a faster pace. It's already happening. There will be a lot of things happening in Middle East now. A lot of things coming to the truth. And of course, we know that there have been many layers of manipulation of humanity, you know, starting with how much information of the findings in the excavations have truly, like come publicly into light. It's around, I could say, like 50%, and of course, including the things that cannot be hidden, like the pyramids. But the things that actually can be hidden, like very specific ET artifacts, uh, like so much has been hidden. And no one owns the truth. There is not a monopolization. There shall not be a monopolization of truth. Of course, there is a truth that can be undeniable, but that doesn't belong to a very specific person. It belongs to all of us. And thankfully, fortunately, we are stepping up to bring all that information to light. Because if we are talking about seeking for sovereignty, it's very important for us to stand up and occupy our place in this co-creation. And having said this, when it comes to the genetics, the parthenogenesis, I'm quite sure that you have heard about the word, the Parthenon in Greece. Where does that come from? And it precisely comes from the virginal conception in which Homo sapiens in the beginning was created. And you can see all that information in the hieroglyphics in the temples and the walls of the temples. All is there. All that is not even encoded information because it's so evident. But then we can also ask ourselves, what are those layers of veils that were limiting the vision so that hundreds, and well, even more than hundreds, thousands, millions of people visit the pyramids. Let's say thousands of people visit these temples, the pyramids, every day, and still there is something that is limiting the perception. It's not even related to the third eye, because the third eye, we're talking about the non-evident, but this is so evident. And it is precisely because when we are talking about memories and selective memory, the way that it was configured, and I'm not talking about the Netheru, just to be clear, the Netheru would actually be seeders of wisdom and knowledge. They wanted to expand all this knowledge to humanity so that humanity at some point remember who they are and get it in a unified way, as at some point they couldn't, due to the fact that there were many factions fighting over the power. And then we have the last cataclysm. And even we can see that the plasma, what we are experiencing right now with the solar flares, was something that they also experienced, of course, at a higher level. But it's showing to us that it's very important to manipulate the plasma within our body, not only for technological endeavors, like building pyramids or all these infrastructures with geometrical shapes and holding communities, which will happen for sure. I'm also talking about the inner technology, all those initiations that they went through, and that perhaps you can say, wait, like spending like 10 years, 20 years of my life mastering my plasma body as the monks do, Well, that's another path, and it's quite honorable. When it comes to living a life, like having so many things to do, then there are different ways to access to this technology. And this information is also coming through. One of the, oh, I'm sorry. Having so many things to do. Okay, I was just checking if there are any questions. Hi, everyone. So beautiful to read all of you. Yes, just remember, I'm doing readings. So I will be doing a reading first for all of us, but I just wanted to give this huge intro. But yeah, like the public school, the school, all those things are actually deviating from the inner path, because everything that most of the institutions are based on is precisely on I know we were talking about all those institutions, and Osiris comes there. Osiris, who is death and rebirth. And this is a very important one because that's what humanity is going through. Death and rebirth in many ways, some of them literally, some of them emotionally, cognitively, um, and some of them, like, really you can feel that your soul is dying because you're integrating soul parts. And I do believe that the stronger that we are, the easier that we make it to ourselves to actually make our lives simpler. Doesn't it sound like a paradox? Like sometimes not sometimes, we were taught to run away from trouble. And the thing is that what we thought it was trouble, it's not trouble at all. It's actually where the golden nuggets of our memories are located. And that goes through a deep path of detachment of all the ideas of people, of things, of places, of just to remember that everything lives within us and inhabit within us, and therefore being capable to create a new reality. Otherwise, through attachments, we are replicating the past. And this is one thing about the memories, that most of the memories are anchored through high emotions. Like if you're in a deep fear or going through a huge trauma, you will remember about that unless you block it. But you block it because it's so powerful that it's still present there. Perhaps you're not aware of it, but it's there, really present. So, and that's one of the hooks of how this reality was configured. Because if we say that our body, our biology gets used to something, and then it creates patterns of behavior along with the brain, because very specific neuronal pathways are connecting to that behavior, to that cycle. Then can you imagine, through the moon frequency, through the technology, through the food, through the media, through all of the things that are indoctrinating humanity, those emotions are amplified. So therefore, they keep on anchoring the memories that they chose to for us to remember. We can see this in the tree of life. When we see that there is this sphere missing, you know, or actually three, but the one that they don't show in the Kabbalah, which is the Dat, which is the information of the Akasha. and it's located in the throat, which is the expression. So it's removing the expression of the humankind so that they would just follow a set. And even codes as the name of Set, that evil being, brother of Osiris that killed him. There is something very important, and I talk about this in order to remember to understand what the mythos is talking about. Yes, there is a part that was literal, and there is another part that even the names that were chosen and later on taken to other things, like for instance the mindset, like, and then we have Set, which is the unfertile being that is full of anger and that castrates the one who is fertile. What's that? The inorganic intelligence. A lot of people, and I'm not going here fully into the AI. No, this is another thing. I'm just saying about, because there is even a sentient part to the artificial intelligence, which is sentient intelligence. That's another aspect. What I'm talking about here is the all the codes, the algorithms with which this programming, this simulation was created. Because even this artificial or inorganic intelligence, it cannot reproduce itself, right? It's infertile. And it's trying to consume and castrate the fertile things by monopolizing. And that's how the story goes. So again, there is a part that all of this story was filled in through programs, through the network that connects that part of the space memory network with which were incubated through. Like imagine the space memory network, as this infinite field of spatiotemporal constants. And now imagine that field, there are very specific space-time geometries as wormholes and also as cubes. And those cubes are compressing very specific information that create alternate realities. And we are in one of them, incubated. So that information do has codes, organic codes. However, most of them were quite inorganic, and mostly, like at some point throughout the medieval times, they were 99% inorganic. The construction was 99% inorganic, like after all the cataclysm. And well, there was a very specific trait. That it's another topic that it's related to the information that I said that I will be sharing. That it's very delicate. And it will come in the perfect moment. So, anyway, then this inorganic, through the medieval times, like the Inquisition and all those things, this inorganic matrix had covered, like most of the incubation of the cube. It was like very compressed, all the information, a lot of amnesia, and the ones who remembered were persecuted for that. However, the more, like, as stages in human evolution move forward, then all those veils, all that amnesia is being progressively removed. And now we are capable to anchor our memories through through, yes, emotions, yet from a state of awareness. And in that moment, we embody sovereignty. When we are capable to anchor our own memories, for instance, just one example. If you're having a very good time, you're having the moment of your life, the time of your life, and then you talk to your brain, to your neurons, and you tell them, okay, I anchor this memory as core pathway, neuronal pathway for other memories that are in the same resonance, aligned to it, and expand this level of frequency, branch to it and expand this level of frequency, and all the memories that are aligned to this frequency. And of course, this doesn't mean that you are rejecting, like bad memories, because this is something that when you express that it's for your highest evolutive purpose in harmony, then that could also bring unpleasant unpleasant memories. But the way that you're going to take care of them will be in harmony, and that's the key, you know. So Osiris came, and we were talking about that and rebirth. And I was also talking about the cube, Osiris and the cube, which is a tesseract, which again is the mastery of the fourth density. So the message of Osiris is huge, huge, huge. I'll just sip a little bit of my small bottle of water. And anyway, so as I was saying, Osiris, there is some people that even connect his name as operative system of the iris. Osiris, operative system of the iris. We can read our whole akasha through our iris. And the iris is holding the space for our pupil, which is the black hole, our primordial black hole from which we get to perceive life and create it, death and rebirth. And in this case, now in relation to the genetics, I recently wrote a post about this, that if you know the Osiris mythos, it talks about Set, the program, castrating him, removing his phallus, shredding him in 14 pieces. We have 14 spaces in between our joints. It's geometry, it's mathematics. And 13 pieces were found except for the phallus. So, and then that's when the chromosome Y in the human appeared. Why? Why? Because you have an X, and as this intersection, when you remove one of the edges, let's say this one, when you remove one of the edges, you get an I. Let me just show it because it will be simpler. So apparently this was the message that the Netheru wanted for or to convey through this transmission. Okay, so we have the X. Oh, okay, it will be. Okay, here we go. We have an X. We have an X, right? So if you remove that leg, let me just cover it from here. If you remove that leg, you get a Y. And this leg represents the phallus, Osiris phallus, because Osiris was the seed that, along with the gen Isis, was used to create the humankind. And this is why it's father and mother, and then the son, which replicates through the Virgin Mary, Joseph, and Jeshua. But then you'll say, hey, but wasn't it a virginal conception? Yeah, it was a virginal conception, but yet there was also genetic manipulation in there. You know, there had to be the information of the father to create the first breed. This is why it's also the analogy that he is dead, you know, and that Isis brings the golden phallus, because the golden phallus represent going beyond the lost and accessing to that form of creation through plasma. You know, and this is huge, you know, because when we are talking about carnal endeavors, like whether having sex, and a lot of people not even wanting to have sex anymore because that's not, you know, like high frequency and so forth, it has taints because of this, you know, like there are forms of conceiving actually even through the plasma body, yet you need to get there. And a way to get there is, one of the forms is actually through a very specific form of alchemy, in which the man and the woman, and I'm saying, you know, like biological conception, this is very important, they create a very specific plasma field that there needs not to be no coitus for the woman to have a child. I'm not saying this because I just think it's a nice story. You can check this, and there are scientific cases on this. They call it the virginal conception, you know. So yeah, this virginal conception is related to that form of asexual reproduction, and that's one of the codes of Osiris. So the message here, and even the restoration of the the double X chromosome, um, and the luminous DNA and so forth, you can see that even some scientists are now considering the fact that at some point the chromosome Y will be disappearing. Literally, it has happened in other species, and they are foreseeing it in humanity as well. And there are records that actually the DNA of Jeshua or Yeshua or Jesus was a double X, you know, so that even can go with so many layers, so many layers. So but then again, you know, like I would go into like deep geometry and genetics. So I think that covering this message is it's fair enough in this way. uh, you see, even the X is everywhere. Yeah, perhaps I need to remove my okay, there it is. Okay, so here even Paris has the X. So now going not in a very scientific form, because Osiris also is representing the Christic consciousness. This is super important. Osiris also represents the Christic consciousness. Even Horus is his child. He is representing the being. Blavatsky used to express Isis in this I am the end and I am the beginning. As once Jeshua said, I'm the Alpha and I'm the Omega. And if we say Osiris here says death and rebirth, it's the same, you know? And now that we are stepping up to the era of Aquarius, it's very important to we're moving a lot of energy. We opened very interesting topics for sure. So, and I'm not even not talking the Okay, so as I was saying, yeah. Well, I know if you're still there, but I thank you for the ones that are still here. We have been moving a lot of energy, as you can see. We have been talking about very, very encrypted topics. And as I was saying, even if I have not talked about or shared with you the ones that are really delicate ones. But as I was saying, so there is a message from Osiris in relation to the death and rebirth. As I was saying, he even has the X, you know, and Osiris, more than sacrifice, he's talking about detachment. When we are capable to live detachedly from all those things that are an illusion, and being capable to remain in focus of what is essential. And even though his life was taken away, which is the major fear that can exist in humanity, the survival instinct leading to the survival mode, he's showing that even death is an illusion. And when we conquer even fear to death, when we reach that illumination, because you might say, for instance, now asking to yourself, hey, are you afraid of dying? And you might say, no, not at all. Yeah, from your state of awareness. However, the way that the biology was encoded through the cerebellum and the connection to the amygdala, which is the part of our brain that is the most archaic one, along with the reticular system, and that is the one who produces the adrenaline, and therefore the cortisol and so forth. Those are very specific regions that, unless we know how to nourish and feed the ones that are creating, like oxytocin and melatonin and endorphins, one example, the pineal gland, or the T cells in the high heart, in the thymus, then we're focusing our energy on life and not in death. And not as a rejection, but as a knowingness that fear is limiting our expansion, the expansion of our consciousness, the unification of our consciousness. And that if we say that were given life by an external force, and that an external force can take it away, then you're talking about not having control. And that replicates in a very delicate and elegant way, to say it somehow, when it even comes to patterns of behavior. When you are moving forward from a very specific pattern of behavior, your ego matrix starts to relate that as a death, because it's coming out of existence. It's being removed from existence, because for the unconscious mind, everything is equally important, and everything is simultaneously existing, and there is no past, and there is no present, and there is no future. Everything is right here, right now. So when we unify our consciousness, and then we conquer that fear to death, then we reach that illumination. And again, the fear of death goes at many scales. That of cycles, of relationships, of it's mainly about that, because we're having a relationship with everything in the universe. We're having a major relationship with the universe, a very intimate one. So when relationships are based on fear, then the attachment happens. And the attachment is even a relationship with something material, So when we transcend those attachments, it's not that it's because they're like, it's going to be over, whether if it's a relationship with someone or with something. It's just because that thing or that person doesn't possess us anymore. Even life itself, the system doesn't possess us anymore. We're not in debt with the system. And when we think that something outside of us gave us life, like even our mother or our father, that idea of depth of life or life depth pops up. And then we ask ourselves, why could we possibly be living, like if we need to pay to live here? And then you start relating and seeing how everything is like Osiris. It seems like he had to pay the price for what? for being alive? Do we really have to pay a price for being alive? Then how do we detach from those intricate beliefs and indoctrinations? And it's by losing fear to death. Because when someone prays for their lives, it's because they fear from death. And then that leads to a whole cycle. And then again, I'm not talking only about that itself as you transcending the body, of someone transcending the body. I'm talking about an emotional, a soul, energetic, like onto some extent, of course, a programming death, which is necessary for us to move forward. So Osiris here is inviting us to take into consideration all the attachments that we have right here, right now. Because those attachments are the ones that are limiting and conditioning our ascension. And again, it's not the same having a connection with something than that connection castrating us, our power. And that's what happened to him. He was castrated by what? By the program. Because in the end, that's what taking your power means, castrating you. So once you have asked yourself, what things are you attached to at this moment? Even if it's your kids, and I'm saying this as a mother, so then from what program are those attachments coming from? And they will show to you that which needs to be brought to life within you because he's dead. Meaning by this, any idea that you have that is creating you attachment to someone or to something, it's because that is illusory death. This is why you fear of losing it, because you're putting it outside. So when you bring that inside you, then you're bringing it back to life within you. And this is a constant. This is happening every time. This is why I'm telling you. These beings of the galactic community were encoding, showing to us the programs through their story, the programs that there are present in humanity, and that if we want to restore the matrix to its primordial state, then it's very important for us to do the homework. For instance, as I was saying with Osiris, detachment to conquer the fear of death. Because if you see, love is the key. And what is the absence of love if it's not fear? And what is not fear? What is mainly fear focused on? Death. Why? Because it's the survival instinct. And again, that can come at many scales. And this is the same when it comes to for instance, Xibalba, or Amenti, the halls of Amenti, and how they put all these beings as the underworld beings, and then you don't connect with them because it's facing that fear of death to conquer illumination. Because at some point you dissolve every part of you through that illumination process of what you thought that you were. And this is again something that is spoken in this reality a lot, when you start the awakening process, then you feel like you're dying and you shed layers of yourself, and then plant them and offer them to the earth. The thing is that then we start creating another personality. So then we start creating another kind of spiritual attachments, even to beliefs. So it's a continuous detaching of any program that can actually categorize us or frame us. And again, isolating us from the wholeness. We can see this, when we connect with all those monks and ascended masters and beings, like they're everything and they are nothing. They can be someday something and another day another thing, and they don't care because they are playing. They're not attached to anything. And this is the beauty of our existence, that when we think that we need to sustain a role, it's because we are being paid for that. And if we are being paid, then we will need to pay for something else. And that's not the same frequency of exchange. Because when we are talking about an organic exchange, it's just coming through, like naturally. It's a different space. It's, for instance, if you need to pay for light or if you need to pay for fuel, okay, it's like, hey, you don't deserve it, so you need to pay for it. You need to pay again to be alive. But there are other kind of exchanges where you are coming from the space of the heart and willingly, giving that transaction, that exchange. That is different. And normally when you do that is because you're coming from a state of awareness and not the program, just doing, paying, doing. When you are actually giving yourself that moment to see where are you deriving your energy to, and whether if it is in resonance or not. And then, that will give you even more. If you're giving it from a space of, like coming from the space of the heart, of awareness, then that will give you more and more and more and more and more. And there are so many distractions in this reality, and even hooks, interferential hooks in the technology, as I was saying, and the programmings, and even in the colors, like the lights, the luminescence, the blue light, that they are infiltrating in the third eye, which is our capability to perceive beyond the evident. And this is not just visually, like not just, okay, I see beings, I see that like transcended beings, I see, like cryptics. I don't, like, even though they manifest at a very physical level. But anyway, you know what I'm talking about, because reality opens up to, I hope you do you do know what I'm talking about. When reality shows, reveals into your eyes, is because you are ready to see it. Why? Because your field is aligning to higher truths. Yet, if you're constantly being bombarded not to see it, then you need to keep on clearing. And then if you're going at a rhythm, at a different pace than what time is, then also need to clear it, to clear your body and align it to the universal time. So all of these constants are really draining unless you keep yourself from the 0 point energy. And keeping yourself from the 0 point energy is actually one of the things that these beings were teaching us. Math came through. And math is commonly related to truth and fairness. And that's what we have been talking about all along. So it's also related to justice, So, and coherence, of course, because for me, this is what the scale comes all about, a harmonic coherence. And when it comes to death, the process of death, because if we put this together, both of this together, facing each other, when they talk about the holes of Amenti, and again, I have spoken about this, Amenti, that's where the word amen comes from. And Amon, like Amon Ra, the Netheru, he took the frequency of that word and tried to use the power of that frequency to then create very specific institutions that would be the processors of what we know as religion today. And because Amenti, the halls of Amenti or Amentu, how I say that, hold the records of how this matrix was configured. So the Egyptian, according to the Egyptian cosmology and the Book of the Dead, when someone entered the final trial held by Osiris, he would face, like, there would be 42 consciousnesses as some, and I must be very clear, I'm not reciting or like mentioning precisely what comes in the Book of Death, because again, most of the information that I share is based on my remembrance and also then finding the way to prove it scientifically wise. So there are 42 beings or consciousnesses that are projected, through those holes that are leading to the final trial where Osiris is. And those 42 beings, if we multiply 7 plus 6, we're talking about the cube, like 6 faces of the cube, plus 7, which is the center. So it's a way of multiplying, of amplifying the power of the cube to actually come out of the incubation and reaching the Christic consciousness. So the Christic consciousness, meaning that luminous DNA, which plasma is so rich and pure, that is bringing that superconductivity from the quantum field all the way to our molecular structure of the water, and therefore creating alchemical processes within our DNA that some people related it to the silicon. However, I mostly like to focus on the plasma fluid, which is enlightening our DNA. So when we reach that Christic consciousness, then we face the holes of Amenti. And by this, I don't mean that you're transcending. When you die, is that you can get to the holes of Amenti. No. Yet to be there, you require to embody a level of coherence in which you're through, like, due to the amount of coherence needed for your body not to disintegrate to that level of frequency. Because the holes of Amenti, when you enter, you can feel how your body is disintegrating and how you are facing death, full death, because you're dissolving into the nothingness, like truly your body becoming a hologram and being disintegrated, and you not responding, surrendering to that power, which is your power, because you're breaching into all dimensions at once from a state of awareness. And all those dimensions breaching through you, creating the level of synchronicity and alignment that through a pulse, you stop being you stop being a unit to become the wholeness, and then restoring your vessel from that level of consciousness. And when they talk about all the new discoveries, which I will be talking about in my video next week, I will be talking deeper about the halls of Amenti and the hall of records and all the things that lie underground, according to my memories, of course. And I, and after that, I will be sharing that delicate topic because, as you know, perhaps, recently I did a video on Amarna with Trevor Grassi, of course, with Sean, and with Alessandra Dapralov. And there was a lot of information that was not mentioned yet, because once that information is shared, the ones who have held the power from the very beginning will start to lose it. And remember, the answer mostly is in the least place that you would look for it. So, and this will bring sense and clarity to understand the story of humanity and how all these battles for power, all these factions have been created based on just one source that has been separating and isolating. And of course, this is a faction, and yeah, it has come the time to uncover it. And I must say that, yeah, I know that a lot of people talk about factions, and this is different. Because in order to talk about that, yeah, unified consciousness needs to be embodied. And yeah, the movie Lucy, exactly. But this is very interesting because even they show Lucy as that black goo, like expanding all over. So there are things that they always put truth, but they cover it so that we suck from it with the distorted expression of it, so that when black goo unconsciously comes to you, then you would relate it unconsciously to the expansion, and being the one or the oneness. So yeah, that's when it's like, okay, yes, but not that way, and this is where also the AI is coming from, like putting, this is nothing new, putting chips in human minds has been happening ever since monarchy exists. And of course, we can relate that to SSP programs and after, but it happens ever since monarchy exists. And they would inherit that consciousness through very specific AI circuits so that they could follow the same indoctrination. And it's a very high, a very advanced form of AI. But anyway, yeah, she's my daughter. Okay, so anyway, as I was saying, Matt, and when you enter to the halls of Amenti, Matt, okay, that was a huge configuration. Matt is the one that brings righteousness. And even there are 42 laws of Ma'at. And even Ma'at, the 42 beings that I was mentioning about the 6 and the 7, 6 plus 7, 42 and 42 laws of Ma'at are mainly representing the pillars, the frequency through every law. The frequency is a frequency that you need to emit in order to break through that cube. And you might say, but where am I going to know? Like, what frequency are these laws emitting? Righteousness, just the best answer it will always come from within. Of course, someone can actually bring to you like a huge epiphany, like through words or the frequency that that person is emitting. Yet when you're going deeper and deeper and deeper, then you know that you were giving yourself that message through that person that perhaps was aware of what was doing or not. In the end, all this is a co-creation. And the more that we own that space of creators and co-creators, the more that we are capable to humbly assume ourselves. So there is math represented by the scale, and having the heart that needs to weight as light as a feather. So this is a very important code, super huge, because a feather is not drawn by the gravitational field. Therefore, it's capable to sustain a huge level of coherence. So it's the coherence of the heart vortex, mainly. So um, does anyone want a card? Just before I will just by saying, just to conclude with this topic of the holes of Amenti for now. Um, so right now, the humanity is being asked to embody a high level of coherence within that will bring you to your highest righteousness. And therefore, that righteousness will be sustained by the freedom that comes through the detachment of anything that can be limiting you, not as a sacrifice, yet as an act of releasing any attachment, any anchor that limits your sovereignty. And therefore, conquering the fear to death or the fear to life. Owning the harmony and the scales in between your feminine and your masculine, in between light and dark, in between negative and positive, in between past and future, you being the axis of that eternal present. For you shall know that everything that you come to rise through your eyes as the sun rises in the horizon is how you get to illuminate your thoughts. When you expand your wings, every feather of your wings is a manifestation of a segment of your life that you have owned and that the universe has entitled you as a sovereign creator. When you remember each one of those moments, you grow your wings. And those wings are not limited. They unfold, they refract, they replicate themselves. For in every dimension, you have them. And in every dimension, you shall use them to return home. Home is where the truth resides. The truth does not come from any other source than the one that inhabits within you, that expresses through you, and that you shall reactivate, ignite again through the passages of omission that were once held in the beginning of times, in the beginning of humans. That expression that is free from any creation that has been imprinted in you of what you are or what you're meant to be. You shall connect with that truth as you release yourself from layers that imprison you to the need of belonging based on the longing to what once was. So release yourself from everything that you thought that was the point that you are heading to. Even detach from your skills, detach from your goals, detach from everything that owns you, because then you will own yourself as a creator, and you will even release the need to own yourself because you will already be. And then once that you are, you can access to any manifestation, skills, gifts, bliss, experiencing it from a space of freedom, the very same freedom that you once rejected by trying to imagine that you are already free. So, okay, I will pull out one from for Candice. Do you have any question or just pulling it for you? Okay, I will just pull it. Interesting. You have a very strong one. Union and power, Sobek. Okay, so for the ones that doesn't know, Sobek. Okay. Union and power. Sobek, for the ones that doesn't know, Sobek is the crocodile, and his teachings, or yeah, we could say his teachings, its teachings were very focused on mastering and owning the darkness and the light within. I have, like, I can. Okay. The seeds that grow compared to the ones that don't prevail is directly based on the joy that you use to plant them. Whatever you don't enjoy won't last long. Whatever you plant through joy, its fruits, its blossoms shall prevail till the end of times, because those come from the infinite source, those come from infinite forces that are leading you to be and walk the path that connects with your true self. And your true self inhabits in a place where separation does not exist, for your shadow is as honorable as your light is, and your light is as honorable as your shadow is. For they honor each one of them, just as Horus honors Set, for they know that if they are, is due to the fact that each one of them exists, and if they continue to be, is because they unite. So fear not of any of those aspects within you. Hide not, hide none of them. The more that you hide, the more unfair that you are to yourself. You came here to shine bright, and the shine can be proportionally equal to the depth of the darkness that you can expand. Within that darkness, you can host and hold your seeds that will come to light. So find the beauty within those aspects that you hide, for those aspects are the core that will make sustainable your light. Thoughts are vast. Actions shall increase as the Nile increases its tide when it's time to bring life into a new form. When the water increases its tide, you might think that it's chaos or that it's bringing or that it's limiting and conditioning life. However, due to those crescents in the tide of the Nile and of the waters, is that everything that needs to be moved shall be moved. For universe knows about a higher coherence in which water, in which fire, in which air, in which earth moves that which is not. So trust in the nature of your higher self breathing through you. For in that place from which it comes from, all the answers have been given. And for you to be receptive enough to own those answers, to express them, to remember them, surrender shall be to who you truly are, to those hidden aspects of you that are now invited to light. Okay. Well, oh, 144. Oh, I was feeling another one. And we have been speaking about righteousness. And this is Mertzeger, the serpent, knowledge, wisdom, information. The serpents are, and this is for you, but it's also for everything, yet it's also for everything that we have been talking about. So the serpents have wings, energetic wings. Not all of them are used. For the ones that doesn't use them is because their purpose is to trace lines in the earth, interconnecting codes from the frequency that the serpents hold. So now a serpent primordially, the wisdom that resides within them, the knowledge that resides within them is bringing, this is super important, is bringing the third density and the sixth density together equally into a ninth density. So when you know how to master and how to enchant the serpent through the frequency of your clean voice expression coming from your heart, and you're capable to enchant them, and then they will create those traces, those ley lines in your reality where the wisdom and knowledge does not imprison you, yet liberates you, because you have embraced with love those aspects that have taken you to go deep within, like feeling like you're crawling, just to feel the earth, to bring those codes deep into the core and rising them, igniting your wings, and then becoming that serpent winged. As the Kundalini, as the Tantra, making love to you, making love to everything, making love to the universe. And by making love is embracing and alchemizing from the space of the heart that which you choose to transform. Whatever you think it is suppressing you the most, make love to it, for it will transform, and its transformation will be sustainable. For the weak seeds come from indifference, yet the strong seeds come from commitment and nourishment. Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. So I will be doing another show at some point, pulling cards. Don't be shy. I know that I go deep within. If you don't want me to go deep within, then just say so, and I will go through the event horizon. Okay, so, yeah, just one last before wrapping it up. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you, Candice. I'm happy that you liked it. Yeah, if at some point any of you want to feel like doing a donation, it's more than welcomed. And I just want to pull one last, well, I already pulled it because it's a trine. So we had Osiris, we had Ma'at, and we have Ptah. So Ptah is here, it's representing the scale. It's very connected to the black hole tech. So Ptah, along with this ones, is showing that through those death and rebirths, to reach that truth and fairness within, detachment, freedom, enlightenment, you will reach to your skills, your true skills that will put you in a place of a divine creator, creator of universes, of realities, where the silence nests, something is being created. Whether if that creation is going to construct or destroy relies only in the perception and the capability of enlightening that perception into its most ascended version of itself. Feel yourself, try yourself, be yourself. You have just tasted a bit of your power. May you taste the feast of your greatness and share it. Bring your beloved ones and share that feast of your greatness. For then they will make fists and share their greatness, and then more fists shall be done, tasting the greatness of each one of us and creating from this reality the celebration of death and life as we become moment by moment, pulse by pulse, everything and nothing. That wholeness where everything resides, where everything is and is not, where your power and your creation is, for everything is already being given. You're just filling in the different roles, the different strings, the different frequencies that you came here to manifest in order to complete yourself. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Until next time, HUNUH.